Hi, this is Marty Murphy, and welcome. And I want to jump right in with this statement, which is the subject of this newsletter. You can't change what you judge. And if ever there was a reason to practice not judging yourself, this is it. Because when you judge yourself, essentially what you do is you lock down on the behavior. You lock it in place more. There's more resistance because you're judging yourself for what you're doing. So if you've ever noticed, like you have some pattern of behavior and you're like, God, you try your damnedest to change it, and yet you can't, the first thing you want to look at is the self-judgment, because self-judgment locks the behavior in place. Self-punishment locks the behavior in place. And most of us don't even realize how often we do this. I've seen it's epidemic. And when I work with clients, I'm sitting here in the objective seat so I can see it more clearly, but it's harder for me to catch it in myself as well. But it's subtle little ways, the should statements, which I talked about in the last newsletter, and just the way that you lock in place how you judge yourself through different thoughts that you have about, well, that didn't go so well, or, oh my God, why did I do that? And I'm going to repeat this a number of times with the last newsletter and this because it is such a critical piece of creating positive, lasting change. And what I want to really talk about in this newsletter is the difference between viewing yourself through the eyes of self-judgment and the eyes of self-awareness. And if you can practice, and it is a practice, noticing behaviors you have, and when you catch yourself in that moment and the judge and jury, the bully in your brain, starts to lock down on you and beat you up, if you can just catch it when you can and take a step back and have this position of self-awareness, and you have to kind of talk yourself through this in the beginning and go, wow, look at me doing that. That's really interesting. Like, I have this pattern of behavior that I've done. That's one way to do it. Another way is to practice this when you catch it and you catch yourself in a statement like, God, I was so stupid that I did that. Finish that with, so what? God, I was so stupid I did that. So what? And practice that. You're not going to believe it at first. You're not going to buy into it at first. But when you practice it, that is a pattern interrupt first and foremost. And it's also forcing that higher part of you, your natural self, to step in and take over and be the observer of what's going on instead of going down the spiral with the bully, beating yourself up. The other thing you can do is when you catch it, you can stop and ask yourself, right here, right now, am I doing the best I can? And that's a pattern interrupt, and it's a question that your mind will automatically seek the answer to. Now, you could get the answer, no, you're not, and that could go, and then you just go, but really, given where I'm at in the moment right now, with my current state of mind, was I doing the best I could in that moment? And when you start to question your thoughts that way and question what's being said to you, you can start to shift it because you're interrupting the pattern and you're putting that adult self part of you back in place. And that's huge when you can do that. So you want to put yourself back in the driver's seat, that part of you that really is like, I've got this. This is okay. I'm doing the best I can. So when you start to see things through the eyes of self-awareness as opposed to self-judgment, and those two can kind of battle each other out for a little bit because you'll be like, there's the bully, and it's locking down on you, and the other part of you is like, yep, but I'm doing the best I can. And that can go back and forth for a little, but the more you practice being self-aware as opposed to self-judging, it can shift everything. And of course, you can tap on, and this is how I do it. When I catch myself in the moment, really judging myself, I just start at the eyebrow. There I am. Wow, I'm really coming down on myself. I am really beating myself up. I learned to do this so long ago. And I have yet to change something by judging myself. But I honor this part of me that learned so long ago that somehow judging myself was effective or even a good idea. So what if I can pay attention to that judge in me, that bully in my brain, and practice observing this part of me with the eyes of self-awareness. That actually feels lighter to me right now. Just noticing my behavior, actually having a curiosity about it. Wow, that's interesting. I must have been so activated to behave that way. And when I practice self-awareness through observation, I lighten the energy of self-judgment. And then I can truly begin to change my life. And just take a breath. That's a technique that I use. I just go right into it. There I am judging myself. Wow. Because that really helps lower the resistance, and it also allows you to really begin to embrace more of this part of you through self-awareness. So the idea is practice self-awareness, and it is a practice. And when you catch yourself judging yourself, it's the perfect time to do it. And just a quick story about myself. Years ago, I was in a 12-step group when I was living in Chicago in my mid-20s. And I noticed I had this sort of magical experience. You know, they talk about your character flaws and all that in the 12-step groups and taking an inventory. But I started to have this experience where I was really just noticing my behavior. And when I say that, noticing behaviors that didn't serve me. And it became really light, like, wow, God, that's interesting. It was really quite magical that I'm like, wow, that's so interesting that I had that behavior. And there was no judgment about it. It was just an observation. And think about that for yourself. Feel into that for yourself. Does that feel lighter or does that feel heavier? It feels so much heavier when you really get down on yourself and judge yourself. And when you take that step back and go, God, that's so interesting. That, I think you'll find, feels so much lighter. And that's when true change can begin. So take good care. Bye for now.